think we're live. Yes. I don't expect very many people to join in because it is 9 in the morning where I'm at, which means it's 10 a.m. Eastern time. But this is kind of the only time I'm able to do this. I don't have very many off days, and when I work I work overnight, so I got that graveyard shift, so I sleep in the afternoon. Makes it really hard to actually hang out with people and stuff, because when I'm up and about, everyone is at work, and when I go to work, everyone is asleep, and when everyone else is up and about, I'm asleep. Very difficult. Oh, but I hope. Well, I always backlog my streams, so everyone will be able to watch this eventually. The only reason why I wanted to do this live is just on the off chance that people send in questions and stuff. I'm gonna post it to Twitter as well. Don't know how to spell. Join me. And I see other people streaming. Well, I almost can't count myself. I do see other people streaming, but they tend to be Sticks Hexenhammer always streams in the morning, but he's in the fucking Netherlands, and he also has 100 times the subscriber base I do. So I'm gonna just go ahead and get started with some house cleaning for those of you who watch later on, and for the one person watching now, hello. A little bit of house cleaning because part of my weird schedule that I have now, I haven't been able to make a whole lot of videos. Ice Queendom, I've been doing videos on those every 2 weeks. That will continue until the series is over. And the Quint Breakdown series is going to be returning probably sometime in the winter. I will probably do part 11. Well, it all depends on when I have access to the movie. I've said this for a couple months now. When I have access to the movies, I will start really hammering out those final 4 parts. And I don't have access to the movie yet, so I don't have access to the clips I would want. And the big announcement, and I already made this announcement on Twitter and Discord, I am very soon to be an actual published author. My literary debut, The Hellfire Bratz, which is book 1 of the Agents of Night Watch series, will be coming sometime this fall. Release date to be announced. Once I have a release date set out and stuff, I will make a trailer on my channel. I will put it up for pre-order. I will have much more to say, but right now I just have the book cover, which you can find on my Twitter, and I have everything kind of hashed out. I just need to do the final little bits with the actual publishers, and yeah. But that's coming. That will be here. sometime in the fall. Even if I have everything finalized like tomorrow, I will be putting it up for pre-order, and it will be released. I'm gonna shoot for like a mid-October release date, because it's got kind of that Halloween vibe. Like, it's not really a horror, but it does have like some elements ripped from horror, so it's fun. October, I think, would be a good time to release my book. And it'll also give me like a solid month to just build up hype for it. Uh, Now, without further ado, we could actually start on One Piece: The Wano Saga, or Wano Arc. This is it's like 100 and like 50, 160 chapters, much longer than any of the other arcs in One Piece's history. Um, and I have a lot to say about it. I have done reviews and discussions about it in the past, so Act 1 and 2, I'm not going to talk a whole lot about. I'm not going to get. I'm not going to do like a beat for beat because that's just not my style. I just don't like doing that. If you want beat for beat analysis, if you want chapter by chapter analysis, there are plenty of other people who are much more dedicated to making One Piece content than I am that you can get that from. I highly recommend Grand Line Review. I watch him every week. If you want longer form analysis, Tekking 101 is not one of my favorite. He's probably the best as far as like doing that kind of stuff for One Piece. I'm just not that big of a fan of that style of video, which is why I've never really subscribed to him. Uh, Murphy Napier and Daniel Green, who are both literary YouTubers, they've been talking about One Piece quite regularly lately. Um, so there's plenty of other people. There's like I'm the King, BDA Law. Like I know of a lot of other One Piece YouTubers. The one I always watch is Grand Line Review, and I've also been watching a lot of Murphy Napier lately. But that has more to do with just being, being on the verge of being a published author. I've been watching a lot more booktubers lately. So I do have a couple points I want to hit on. And the first is the setup. So Wano itself was like 160 chapters. That was like 4 years of publication. But even before that, pretty much ever since the time skip that happened, we've been building up to this moment. We've been building up to the point where Luffy goes from this cool pirate that we're following to one of the big pirates in the world of One Piece. This whole everything from him arriving again at Sabaody to him defeating Kaido has been his quest to become one of the pirate emperors. And even before that, like going all the way back to like chapter 1, there were hints at a lot of the stuff, even as early as chapter 1. And then we started getting more hints and stuff. I would say post Enies Lobby was when the emperors were first kind of like revealed. That was when we got the clash with Shanks and Whitebeard. That was when we got the Kaido Big Mom name drop. And then Thriller Bark, which was right after that, had a lot of setup for Wano. That was the first time we heard of Wano. We had Ryuma, who wielded Shidai Kitetsu, and he had the zombie Ryuma had a fight with Zoro. That was Zoro's big fight in that arc. Gecko Moria, the big bad of that arc, had previously fought Kaido and lost, and that was why he was the way he was. We had Oars, who was an Ancient Giants. The Ancient Giants play into Wano. The whole Paramount War and Ace having this connection to Wano, that was revealed in Marineford because of Little Oars Jr., another Ancient Giant, who Ace gave giant like straw hat too, which he learned how to make while on Wano. We get to actually kind of see a little bit of that in Wano. And I feel like oh, Lola. Lola was introduced in Thriller Bark, and she gave Nami Big Mom's Vivere card, which played a major role in the Whole Cake Island arc, as did Brook. Brook was the MVP of Whole Cake Island, and he was introduced in Thriller Bark as well. Then you had like the Paramount War, and that was when it was revealed that Whitebeard had a second division commander, but that he had been retired for whatever reason until Ace came along. That was our... Technically, we had been introduced to Marco and the other Whitebeard commanders, and I think it was actually Jaya that we first saw Marco. That was when we first saw Whitebeard, too, and Marco was like his crewmate that we saw. I don't think we saw any of the other crewmates back then. You know, going back even that far, you can see like the foundations of all the pieces that would become very important in Wano, and that's just mind-boggling. And this is what's so great about One Piece. One Piece is greater than the sum of its parts, and what I mean by that is that there are some missteps, there are some stumbles, but Oda is such a good and talented writer that he can take those stumbles and still make you maybe not ignore them, but look past them, because everything else is so well structured and well put together that it undoes any flaws in the beat for beat storytelling. And Wano is a really good example of that. Wano has some issues. It has some stuff I wasn't totally fine with. But the stuff I wasn't totally fine with was still done for a reason. It still played into the plot in major ways that I ended up appreciating and being like, you know what? The Big Mom amnesia subplot, that was really stupid. And I will stand by it being really stupid. But the fact that it led to her moment with Tama and getting Queen out of the way so that Luffy can break out of prison and team up with Kid, and that led to Big Mom teaming up with Kaido, and then Tama arriving on Onigashima and being kind of the MVP for a bit with their Kibidongo, and none of that stuff. Like, one of my favorite lines in this arc is Big Mom when she blasts Page 1 into oblivion, and she's like, even in the pirate world there are standards. We wouldn't have had that moment if not for the really stupid amnesia subplot. That's just how One Piece has always been. I even said something along those lines in my review of like the Water 7 saga, where like I did not like Long Ring Long Land, but without Long Ring Long Land kind of running in place the way it did, Water 7 would not have been as well like manufactured. It would not have been the well-oiled compounding machine that the Water 7 saga ended up being. And yeah, like this is certainly the most ambitious arc in One Piece's history, and it might be for the remainder of it. I seriously doubt we're gonna have another arc this long. I feel like the next, like the final saga, which is what we're in now, is going to be a lot of smaller arcs, and it's just going to be like go, 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 go. Reveal, battle, reveal, battle, reveal, battle, reveal, battle. I feel like that's what One Piece is going to become for this final stretch, because this is kind of the last arc where Luffy can be adequately seen as the underdog. He's fighting an emperor, and he hasn't fought anybody on that level yet. Like I said before, this is Luffy becoming like one of the top tier pirates. Now, yes, there are people that are still going to cause him to struggle. He's not the pirate king yet. He's not the world's strongest yet. I would say Shanks is certainly stronger than him. Blackbeard is probably stronger than him. Aki Inu might be stronger than him. We have no idea about Eam. if Ima's even going to be a combatant. But they're not going to be... The gap between Shanks and Luffy right now is much closer than the gap between Luffy and Kaido at the beginning of Wano. And that's something I really wanted to point out. And I've said this on Twitter several times. I've said this on Discord several times, but I don't think I've ever said it in a YouTube video. Luffy doesn't get much stronger throughout the series. Luffy wasn't... let me explain that. Throughout the entirety of pre-time skip One Piece, Luffy doesn't actually get physically stronger. He completely steamrolls over everyone in East Blue. The first person to really challenge him was Crocodile, and the only reason why Crocodile challenged him was because Crocodile was a Logia, and that whole fight was all about Luffy figuring out how to hit a Logia user. His battle with Enel was all about figuring out how to hit someone who has psychic powers. His battle with CP9 was all about recreating their strength and durability abilities using his Devil Fruit abilities, and that's how he developed Gear 2 and Gear 3. That was all about, like, making up for the fact that CP9 had a bunch of martial artists who had greater skill than him. But once he landed those blows, once he was able to get through their, like, iron body technique, they went down. Obviously Rob Lucci was a much greater challenge, but Luffy still managed to beat him in the end. Then with Gekko Moria, it was all about, like, again, figuring out how to fight with the shadows and stuff. The whole Paramount War Saga, Luffy is completely inadequate and still manages to, like, hurt Magellan, hurt Blackbeard, because he's just that naturally strong. Much harder evidence case for this. All the way back in, like, Chapter 1, Luffy was breaking swords in half. It took Zoro up to, like, Chapter 100 to have a similar feat. That's just how physically strong Luffy has always been for the time that we've spent with him. Now, he did have, obviously, an overall, I would say, power increase during the Water 7 saga, thanks to the gear system. I will give him that. And then post-time skip, he got a lot stronger in those 2 years. Throughout post-time skip, he also doesn't get that much stronger. He completely steamrolls over everyone in Fishman Island and Punk Hazard. Like, the first person to really give him a challenge was Doflamingo, and after going Gear 4, Doflamingo went down in, like, 2 or 3 hits. Same thing with Cracker. Cracker was the next big challenge, and the whole point of that fight was, like, Luffy kept on having to use Gear 4 to break through the Biscuit Warriors and couldn't get to Cracker in time. So it was all about getting the Cracker in time. And then Katakuri. Once Luffy was able to, like, figure out what Katakuri was actually doing, and once Luffy was able to land blows in Gear 4, it was basically over. Yeah, they were still evenly matched at that point. Yes, Katakuri had greater skill and a greater Devil Fruit and Awakening and all that stuff. But Luffy was just like Crocodile, just like Enel, just like Rob Lucci. It was all about Luffy figuring out how to hit his opponent. Because once he can hit his opponent, it's game over. It really is. And we see that again with Kaido, with learning the Advanced Armament and Advanced Conqueror's Haki. That's what he needs to really hit Kaido. That's why he needs to land really good, solid blows against Kaido. Once he does, playing field is just instantly leveled after that. Luffy goes from this guy who's way out of his depth to this guy who can actually go toe-to-toe with an Emperor just by learning that technique. He already had the physical strength, speed, and durability to hang with Kaido. He just couldn't hurt Kaido until that happened. And that makes Wano kind of odd because Wano's the only time we've seen him get stronger in real time like that, which I thought was really neat. But now that I have all that set up and stuff out of the way, so on to my next slide. Wano as a setting. Also, hello Devin O. Devin O says, I really wasn't a fan of how Luffy's fruit is Zoan. I have a whole section on Gear 5 later. I actually really liked it. I think it's a little silly that we now have 3 human-to-human fruits, and 2 of them are mystical, and my boy Chopper's like, fuck? Wano is one of the most fleshed out settings we've ever had. I don't know if it is the most fleshed out. I would say Water 7 might be a little more fleshed out. But again, it's part of this, like, we spend so much time in Wano, and Wano is so, like, kind of simple. It's just Japan. It's just feudal era Japan. But it's got a lot of distinguishing landmarks. It's much larger than Dressrosa. Like, just physically, so it feels like an actual kingdom. The only other kingdom that we've been to that I would say felt like an actual kingdom was Alabasta. There's Alabasta, and yeah, that's basically it. Like, Fishman Island just felt like a single city. Dressrosa just felt like a single city. Wano feels like an actual country, as did Alabasta. And I have another section where we're going to talk about, like, kind of comparing Wano favorably to Alabasta as well. And that it's even more mind blowing when we find out, like, the secret of Wano. So in order to get into Wano, you have to fly up this waterfall. It's just like this island that's suspended in the air. I don't know why I'm moving my hands to demonstrate. You all can't see me. But it's just this island seemingly suspended in the air. The ocean just kind of like swells like a mountain of water that's constantly falling and stuff. And it just seems like just a goofy One Piece thing. Like, oh yeah, this is a fantasy series after all. This is just another magical element of the world of One Piece that's not going to get explained. And then it gets explained. It's actually a lake, and there's walls. And the actual island of Wano is at sea level, but it's just buried under this, we're told it's rainwater, because it's like just this giant bowl sitting in the middle of the ocean with water constantly falling off of its sides to keep people from coming in. And opening up the land of Wano, which is what Momonosuke's ultimate goal is throughout this whole saga, is to open up that bowl, get Wano back to sea level, like drain all the water to reveal the full size of the country, which is just absurdly just huge compared to the Wano we already saw, which was already pretty big, already one of the bigger islands we had been to. And Pluton's also underneath it. Which ties it back in with Alabasta and the Poneglyphs and Robin's backstory and Water 7 and Frankie, because that's what CP9 was after. And oh yeah, CP9 has representation in Wano because of Who's Who. And just see, it's all tied together. You need a conspiracy board to connect all the dots of just this massive ass story and how it all just connects back to Wano. That's what I love about this, man. Oda does a really good job of making the island we're on feel like the most important goddamn thing in the entire planet. He kind of did that a little bit with Dressrosa too, but I never really bought it with Dressrosa because Dressrosa was just so small. Like it was like I said, like Dressrosa was just a city at the end of the day. Like it never really felt like an actual kingdom to me. He also did that with Fishman Island. But I was able to buy it a lot more with Fishman Island because of, again, Fishman Island just being a little bit bigger, having a lot more setup leading up to Fishman Island than any island we had seen before that. And the fact that it's kind of this bottleneck within the Grand Line where no matter what pathway you take, you have to cross Fishman Island eventually. That added a lot more weight than it otherwise would have. But yeah, I like Wano's aesthetic. I especially like how it's portrayed in the anime. Um, and I like that it has very distinguished parts. Like, you have the Udon prison, you have the flower capital, you have the village that with all the smile fruit excess, which, oh my god, that hurt me to read. What the smile fruits actually do to people. And yeah, it did its job in making this arc feel important and therefore better utilizing its time. Wano is of course a very long arc, and I think it does a lot to validate its length that other long arcs in One Piece didn't. I don't think Dressrosa needed to be 100 chapters. I don't think Punk Hazard needed to be 50 chapters. I don't think Fisherman Island needed to be 50 chapters. Wano needed to be 150 chapters, at least. Like, we're even seeing people now that it's all said and done, being like, that's it? Like, there's still so much to do. Like, right now, the Zygon is like, the ending was rushed. It took 160 chapters to get there. Which is just funny. It just further proves my point that Wano did a lot more to validate its point. Validate its length, rather, than Dressrosa did. Because once I was done with Dressrosa, like, oh my god, thank god we're finally leaving this fucking island. Hello, Rob Kuro. Rob Kuro said, what's good, guys? What's really good? Wano is very good. And also, the fact that... I said this at the beginning of the stream, but no one was in here yet. I'm going to be a published author soon. The actual official release date announcement will be here in a few weeks. Going on... Moving on to my next slide. Where to begin with this? The stakes. Luffy has always been a warrior of liberation in the world of One Piece. Every major arc has him freeing something from something else. Freeing someone from something. That's just One Piece. That's just Oda's writing style. That's just his main thematic core is freedom. The Pirate King is the one who has the most freedom. Here we get a much starker picture of what that means to Luffy. There is a line, the final line of dialogue that Luffy has with Kaido. Kaido asks him, what kind of world do you want to create? And Luffy says... And this is his true dream. This is the true dream that had been alluded to since the beginning. And that is, he wants to create a world where he and his friends can eat their fill. The first person Luffy meets on Wano is Tama. A girl who is half starved to death. Eating poisoned fruit and drinking toxic water just to survive. That's what's at stake in Wano. Arlong took Nami's freedom. He took her ability to choose for herself. Crocodile... I'll get to that later. Enel took away the people's freedom to question him. CP9 was trying to capture Robin and ultimately kill her because they thought that she would bring about the end of the world as they knew it. And she might still do that. Hody Jones was the opposite extreme where he wanted to just lash out and kill people who had oppressed the fishermen for so long. Doflamingo took people's memories of their loved ones and their overall autonomy. These are all very, like, vague humanistic concepts. Crocodile took people's water, which is a necessary thing to live. And we saw that through, I can't remember his name, but he's the guy from Alabasta who kept on digging the well. His son was the leader of the revolutionaries in Alabasta, and him and Luffy had this, like, bond. And the fact that Crocodile was taking these people's water away from them was the thing that set Luffy off. Food is much more important to Luffy than water. And we see the impact of starvation in Wano way more than we saw the impact of dehydration in Alabasta. Alabasta is already in my top 5 favorite arcs, and that way alone, Wano is already a better arc than that. Just the importance of food. And then the previous big arc was Whole Cake Island, which was all about food and having excessive amounts of food and letting it go to waste. And then that just starkly contrasts with how Kaido runs his kingdom, where he's starving out the populace. And it made Luffy's bond with Sanji and their shared interest in food and their shared philosophy on, like, what it's like to starve just hit that much harder. And all of a sudden, it reminded me that the first 2 things Luffy said that he needed on his crew were a cook and a musician. Food's always been important to Luffy, and it's always been treated as a gag, but this arc added a lot of weight to Luffy and to his bond with Sanji and to his bond with the Straw Hats in general. And it all kind of focuses around on Tama, who they're setting her up to be a future Straw Hat. I feel like there's going to be, after Luffy becomes the Pirate King, we're going to get another time skip, and he's going to have a lot of new crew members at that point, and Tama's going to be one of them. And this might be just a crackpot theory. Tama might be the next actual Straw Hat. As in, she might be the one Luffy gives the Straw Hat to. That is how much I buy into this bond that they share, despite not having that much screen time together in the grand scheme of things. Yes, she's the first person he meets in Wano. A lot of the tragedy of Wano is focused on her. And there's another character who shares that role with her, Toko, who is kind of on the opposite side because she ate a smile fruit. But yeah, Toko and Tama are kind of like the focal point characters of just how much Wano has been suffering since Kaido and Orochi took over. It's just good shit. So yeah, on top of, like, just needing to overcome the emperors and take that next step closer to becoming Pirate King, Luffy gets super invested in the people of Wano and their struggle because it's something he cares so deeply about. It. He's not just fighting for their freedom, he's fighting for their freedom to eat. That's what sets him off in Onigashima. Onigashima was supposed to be a stealth mission, but then he sees them wasting food and sees them just, like, talking smack on the people of Wano as they just gorge themselves and waste. And Luffy's just like, how dare you guys waste food when Tama is starving? And that's when he goes apeshit. And then Zoro, who's supposed to be like the more reasonable one of the two, it's like, Luffy, what the fuck are you doing? We're supposed to be doing this stealthily. When Luffy says these guys are wasting food, Zoro's like, oh, I understand. Whips out his sword and joins them. Like, just, I love their dynamic so much. And this arc, I really feel like was making up for lost time because Luffy and Zoro haven't had a whole lot of moments post time skip. They were on Dressrosa together, but they were kind of like kept on their own separate sides of the battlefield. And then Zoro wasn't on Whole Cake Island at all. And so this arc, Zoro does a lot in this arc, and I'll get to that when I start going like Straw Hat to Straw Hat, because every Straw Hat plays a pretty good role in this arc, which is another thing that separates it from at least any of the post time skip arcs. Like it's the thing that puts it above any of the post time skip arcs is that all the Straw Hats are involved, and they all have pretty significant roles thematically, plot wise, and most of them get some pretty good character moments as well, which is something we just haven't had from the crew since Thriller Bark. But now let's talk. The next two slides I'm only going to talk about briefly. So, Wano does have kind of a 3-act structure. It's actually based on Kabuki Theater, which is a 5-act structure, but acts 3, 4, and 5 are kind of all put in Act 3 of Wano. Like if you want to like use the Kabuki Theater method, then Act 3 would be everything leading up to Luffy's awakening. Act 4 would be the final battle between Luffy and Kaido. And then Act 5 would be everything that happens after that. That's how it would be if this really adhered to the Kabuki Theater setup. Act 1 is all about like kind of Luffy figuring out Wano and figuring out what's going on, reuniting with Zoro, reuniting with the other Straw Hats and the other members of their alliance, Law, Kinemon, Momonosuke, and then having his first fight with Kaido and just getting demolished. It's all pretty good setup. I don't think there's really anything special about Wano Act 1, though. And that's, like I said, the next two slides on my thing are going to be very, very brief. Especially since I did a full-on review of Wano Act 1 and 2 when I did my One Piece video series years ago at this point. And also, I haven't reread it since, I haven't reread those parts in a couple months now, and so it's just not all fresh in my head. And I'm not going to do, like I said at the start, I'm not going to do a beat-for-beat breakdown of the plot. Like, there's just other people who are better qualified for that than I am. Act 2 is when I actually caught up with One Piece. When I actually finally caught up with One Piece, it was in the middle of Wano Act 2. And this is the actual setup for the raid. Like, the first act was very typical One Piece, first half of an arc type deal. Act 2 was like, okay, hold up, Luffy nowhere near strong enough to fight Kaido. He just got one shot. He's in prison now. He needs to train. We need better equipment. We need more allies. We need to actually start a civil war here. And we need to figure out what's the best time to take on Kaido and Orochi, when to do that, waiting on everyone. Like, there's a lot of, like, planning and trying to keep the secret. You got the character Yasui, who is Toko's father? He used to be, like, a daimyo, and he sacrifices himself in Act 2 in order to keep the rebellion secret, the secret of their invasion, and kind of like die for their sins, and it's all very touching stuff. Act 2 also, I think, has the biggest problems in Wano, mostly because it's when Big Mom shows up. Big Mom shows up, she gets kicked down to the waterfall by King, uh, and she gets amnesia, and it's really stupid. But like I said, I kind of already rambled on how it's actually okay because of how it plays into the story. Like, yeah, but I feel like there was a better way. uh, any writer given enough time and hold on, okay, sorry, I don't know what happened to my internet there. Um, any writer given enough time and effort can make something work. Uh, I I have to hold Oda to a higher standard than that because I know he's a better writer than that. If he wasn't a better writer than that, I wouldn't even talk about it. Like, I talk about Ruby. If Ruby did something stupid like that, it would barely even register because Ruby, even at its best, is still really fucking dumb. So it just lowers my standard for the whole series. Whereas One Piece, it's so consistently good that when it does something that is actually really stupid, it gets a lot of backlash. Some of the backlash I don't think is deserved. The backlash about Big Mom losing her memories absolutely is, though. But the rest of Act 2 is pretty good. I like Zoro getting Enma. I like the whole Yasui situation. I like the reveal that, or the hints, I should say, because it's not revealed until Act 3. The hints of like both sides having a traitor. We find out that Kanjuro is the traitor for the Alliance and Drake is the traitor for Kaido. And it's just this kind of like it reminded me a bit of Water 7 with how complex those mechanisms ended up getting. It doesn't get nearly as complex as Water 7, which is a good thing because this arc is really long and has like 150 characters all fighting for screen time. Like there's just no way to make it work if you have it as complex as Water 7. Water 7 was only able to be as complex as it was because there was only like 7 Straw Hats at the time. That's if you count Frankie. Uh, no, no, Frankie was number 8. Frankie was number 8. So yeah, there are 7 Straw Hats and then 8 if you count Frankie back then. Now there's 9 Straw Hats, 10 if you count Jinbei, who comes in at the towards the start of Act 3. And you also got the 9 Scabbards, and you have Momonosuke and the other samurai. You have Marco and Izo show up for Act 3. You got just all these guys. That's not even getting into the villains who, you have Kaido, you have Big Mom, you have Perospero and the 3 All-Stars, the 6 Toby Roppo, the various other headliners, Basil Hawk, and Scratchman Apu. Like, there's just... Oh, and then also, like, Law, Kid, and Killer. The other members of the Worst Generation are all there. Like, there's just a lot of fucking people in this arc. Way more than any other arc in One Piece, including Marineford. Like, it's just wild. So now, another brief slide I have. The Smile Fruits. This kind of goes with the stakes part. I probably should have put those 2 parts together before getting into Act 1 and 2. The Smile Fruits are a really ingenious idea from a, like, just cool look at this thing standpoint. Like, we were getting the Smile Fruits as early as Zoe was when we first got a look at them. And it's something that had been set up all the way back in Jaya when Bellamy got his ass beat and was calling Doflamingo for help, and Doflamingo was, saying like, "Yeah, and then I got big plans." And then in Sabaody, we hear another thing from Doflamingo, and the auction house person is trying to call him for help, and he's like, "No, no, no, the human trafficking that's in the past. The future is all smiles." And then in Punk Hazard, we find out like what the smiles are, that they're artificial devil fruits. Caesar Clown is developing them for Doflamingo, who is selling them to Kaido because Kaido wants an army of devil fruit users in order to start the biggest war the world had ever seen. That's just how he's bolstering his ranks and strengthening his subordinates. And Law's plan starts with destroying the weapons factory, and then taking the fight to Doflamingo and undoing all of his stuff. And Law's original plan was to just screw over Doflamingo just enough to where Kaido gets pissed and starts fighting Doflamingo, and then have Kaido actually kill Doflamingo. That does not work because Luffy is just way too honest and reveals himself and reveals the plan, and then they end up having to take down Doflamingo, which puts all of Kaido's wrath on them. And then a whole cake happened, and then just things got more and more complex. And Wano, we find out that the smile fruits are fucking just terrifying. If you eat one, there's a 30% chance you die. Then 35% chance or whatever percent that you become a pleasure. Which means that you get Joker-fied. Your whole muscle just contorts into a smile, and that you can no longer show your emotions. It's all smiles, as Doflamingo says. And you also lose your ability to swim. And we also find out that Killer is a pleasure because he was force-fed a smile fruit after being captured by Kaido. And you have Toko, and you have this whole town of people who are just smiling and laughing even though they just want to scream and cry, and it's just really goddamn depressing. It's really depressing. And that is one of the things that actually set Zoro off. Zoro's not exactly the most expressive guy on the crew, but I'll get to Zoro. Zoro is used very interestingly in this arc, and he's used in a way he hasn't ever been used before. So, next slide. One of the big problems I have with the longer One Piece arcs is location fatigue. This especially affected Dressrosa, because Dressrosa took place over the course of an afternoon. It was all very daylight. It was a very basic looking island at that. It was just Italy. It was just pirate Italy. Wano breaks this monotony up with these news from the world segments, as I have called them. We get one after Act 1. Well, we get one before Wano even starts. We get the whole Reverie arc. Then we get one at the end of Act 1, where we find out that Fujitora is trying to get the warlord system overthrown. We see Blackbeard for the first time post time skip, for real this time. He has his fight with Gecko Moria, who again kind of ties on to Wano because of his prior beef with Kaido. And then we get one at the end of Act 2, where we find out that the warlord system has been abolished, that X-Drake is actually a Marine, that he's friends with Kobe. Kobe's going after Boa Hancock. The shit's going down with the Reverie. Sabo is, even more wanted than before. And then a lot of post Wano is even more of that. We get the the bounties and stuff. But just seeing a little bit of the outside world and seeing the fact that just because Luffy is no longer able to interact with the outside world doesn't mean that the outside world is just waiting for him to get done with Wano. Things are going on. The world is a very different place when Luffy leaves Wano than it was when he entered Wano. And I really like that. It does a lot to break up the monotony, break up the location fatigue, even though I think Onigashima still kind of suffered from that because we might have went a little too long without one of those breaks during the Onigashima raid. But it's just good to see the other, major characters again. It's good to see Boa Hancock. It's good to see Kobe. It's good to see Garp. It's good to see... I don't think we saw Smoker, but if we did, it would have been good to see him in that section. I really like Blackbeard's post time skip design. He is very much living up to his name. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what he does. Next slide. The flashback. And before I actually get into this, Rob Kuro did ask earlier, and what will your first story be? It's called the Hellfire Bratz. It's a pulp-inspired urban fantasy about mages. I'm actually not good at describing what the story is about because it's a little offbeat. It's a little like it's an ensemble story, so it's got like 3 different plots going on at the same time that all kind of revolve around these this arson case that these various mage groups get involved in. Yeah, the Odin flashback. At the end of Act 2, we finally get to see the Wano flashback, and it's been heralded as one of the greatest flashbacks in One Piece. It probably is. I have to admit it. I've never actually been all that into One Piece flashbacks. Like, they're good, they're cool and stuff, but I've never really resonated with One Piece flashbacks the way I have with Naruto or Bleach flashbacks. I think of the big 3, One Piece flashbacks have just... so many of them kind of just follow the same beats. Like, even this one, like, Odin is cool and happy and really strong, and then he meets all these crazy people that we already know about, like Whitebeard and then Roger, and then he comes back and things start to go bad, and then he sacrifices himself to be the big backstory character that dies for another character. Like, it's just, it plays a lot of the same beats other flashbacks in or other flashbacks in One Piece have. That's not really a knock against it. That's just an observation, and that's just like, I don't have any complaints with the Wano flashback except that it might have gone a little too long. Like, it was like 20 chapters or something like that, something crazy like that. But it did get me excited. It did its job and get me excited to see Kaido and Orochi finally taken down. And it made me understand Kinemon's plight a lot better. And it got me hyped for Raftel. Because we get to see a lot more Roger than we ever have before. We see one of his many clashes with Whitebeard. And we see, like, how he was able to read the poneglyphs. It was with Odin's help. And, yeah, it's just something else, man. Also, I know Japanese has this thing where R and L are interchangeable, but we've been calling it Raftel ever since Reverse Mountain. Ever since, like, chapter 100. We've been saying, like, oh, the One Piece, it's on this island called Raftel. Or most likely on this island called Raftel. It's almost certainly on Raftel. And now we have confirmation that, yes, it is on Raftel. Along with that confirmation, it's actually Laugh-Tale, and I am never, ever going to get used to that. Same thing with the revelation of Luffy's Devil Fruit. I am never, ever going to refer to it as the Hito Hito no Mi mythical model Nika. I might call it the Nika fruit or Nika powers in passing every so often, but it's still just I've spent so long calling it the Gomu Gomu no Mi or the Gum Gum fruit that I'm just never gonna change that. I'm still gonna call it Raftail, even though it is now confirmed to actually be Laugh-Tail. Maybe it's actually both. Like maybe it has something to do with rafts as well, and that maybe that was the name of the island, and then maybe Roger was the one who changed it to Laugh-Tail as like a nickname. Who knows? I don't know. I don't really care because I'm just gonna call it Raftail anyway. But no, Odin was a G. He was really cool. I do have to say though, I don't like power scaling. One Piece power scaling is especially stupid because everyone is just so fucking durable. Anyway, like even the weakest people can take like just straight up nukes to the face and be okay. And I don't see this anymore, but I know when this flashback was coming out, people were saying that, like, Odin top 5 all time, Odin stronger than Mihawk, Odin stronger than end of series Zoro, Odin Yonko level, like, y'all realize he lost to Kaido, right? And that was 20 years ago. And that Kaido has gotten a lot stronger in those 20 years. And that the Kaido that Odin fought was the Kaido who had just fought Gecko Moria, and Gecko Moria actually challenged him. Like, yeah, Odin, he's no slouch. He's a beast. He has Conqueror's Haki, but he's probably as strong as Zoro is right now. Like he's definitely like top Yonko Commander level, but you know who else is top Yonko Commander level? King, Katakuri, current Zoro, Whole Cake Island Luffy. You know who they aren't stronger than? Kaido. It just got so ridiculous. Especially people saying like, "Oh, he's stronger than Mihawk." Like, motherfucker, Mihawk still has like the biggest strength feat we've seen in the series when he cut that glacier in half from a mile away. Like, no other character has demonstrated raw strength the way Mihawk did in Marineford. No one's even come close. Now for my next slide. Kaidos Crew. Kaido has one of my favorite crews in the entire series. I really like how it's structured, and I just want to kind of gush about that a little bit. Because it's also massive. So you have the waiters who don't have any kind of devil fruit power that never had a smile fruit. They make up the rank and file. Then you have the pleasures who had the defective devil fruits, the defective smile fruits. And then you have the gifters, and this is where the Kaido, the Beast Pirates really won me over. Because we have some creative ass smile fruit users. I don't remember hardly any of their names, but I love the dude whose arm is just a gorilla, and his attack is Gorilla Punch Punch. I like the guy whose arm is just a whole ass giraffe. Obviously, Speed is a great character. With massive horse jugs, and is also very motherly to Tama, which helps win me over. And of course, we also have after that we have the headliners, which are like all the strongest gifters and also other devil fruit users. That's where like Hawkins and Apu are. And then you have the top 6 headliners who are the Toby Ropo, and they all have ancient Zoans. I like to think that Kaido did this on purpose. He's like, I like to imagine, because Hawkins is a headliner. He's not one of the Toby Ropo, despite almost certainly being stronger than half the Toby Ropo. Like, he's a monster in his own right. And I like to think of this conversation between him and Kaido going something like, Kaido-san, you realize that I'm stronger than page 1 at least, right? Like, why am I not a Toby Ropo? Look, Hawkins, I kind of have this thing going. You're not a Zoan Fruit user, so I can't have you be a Toby Ropo or one of my officers. Like, he's really... Kaido's really dedicated to the whole Zoan bit. But with the ancient Zoans comes dinosaurs, and I love dinosaurs. Drake, of course, was the first ancient Zoan we had ever met. We met him all the way back in Sabaody. And he has an Allosaurus devil fruit, and Allosaurus happens to be my favorite dinosaur. Then we have Who's who is a saber-toothed tiger. We have Sasaki, who's a Triceratops. We have Page 1, who's a Spinosaurus. And I have to say this about Page 1, because Page 1 was actually introduced in, I think, Act 2 of Wano at one point. In his Spinosaurus form. And it was, very like Jurassic Park 3 Spinosaurus. Oda actually changed up Who's design for Act 3 of Wano after that new research came out that Spinosaurus actually had a much wider tail and would have been much more aquatic. So Page 1 actually had that design change, which is really neat. And it makes what I'm about to say next all the more stupid and hilarious. Sasaki's Triceratops frill is used as a propeller. King is able to, King is a pterodon, by the way. He's able to, grab the crest somehow, even though pteranodons' arms would not have been able to bend that way. He's able to, pull his face back and just launch it like a rubber band. You have Queen, who's able to, detach his Brachiosaurus neck like a snake. Just, no. Oda, that's not how dinosaurs work. And it's just, again, it's so stupid and so hilarious, especially considering that Page 1 had a character redesign because of updated research. But all the Toby Ropo are... They're actually kind of dull. I like them as a fighting unit. I like the idea of them. But the only ones that really interested me were Black Maria and Ulti. The two women of the group as well. Black Maria only really interested me because she's a giant Triassic era spider whose name I always have trouble pronouncing, so I can never remember it off the top of my head. And I really like her fight with Robin. Ulti is my favorite character in Act 3, and I want her to step on me. She's just so loud and just so boisterous and so just hot-headed that it works for me. It does something for me that none of the other, female antagonists throughout One Piece have done. And I really like her relationship with Page 1, their brother and sister, and she's just so abusive to him, but then also such a doting older sister. She's like, no, how dare you hit Page 1? Only I'm allowed to do that. And she's a Pachycephalosaurus, which is another one of my favorite dinosaurs. That just, it works for me. It really does. But yeah, above the Toby Ropo, you have the All-Stars. Jack the Drought, who we met in Zoe. He's a Mastodon. Queen, he has history with Vegapunk and Vinsmoke Judge, and he's also a Brachiosaurus. And then King the Wildfire, he's a Pteranodon boy, and he's Kaido's right-hand man, and he's also a Lunarian, whatever that means. Race of people who used to live on the Red Line and are... Yeah, race of people who are able to live on the red line and are allegedly able to survive through any kind of circumstance. And then above them, you got Kaido, of course, and then Orochi's like his partner is associated, as was Doflamingo, and then Big Mom is joining an alliance with him, and you also got Yamato running around, even though I wouldn't consider her part of the Beast Pirates, or them. I'm going to use all three different types of pronouns for Yamato, by the way, just interchangeably. I really feel like he's the type of character that would not give a fuck. That's what I like about them. That's what I like about Yamato. So next is our next gang of people is the scabbards. I wasn't super impressed with any of the scabbards individually, but I was impressed with them as again a unit. There are 9 of them, and they all get we kind of got drip fed them, because first we had Kinemon, who was introduced in Punk Hazard. He's got the devil fruit that can give him clothes, and he's kind of the de facto leader, even though he's arguably the weakest of the bunch. Then you have Kanjuro, who is introduced in Dressrosa. He's actually a traitor, so he gets replaced by Izo. Izo was actually introduced back in Marineford, even though he never really left an impression on me in Marineford. The only Whitebeard commanders that left any kind of impression on me were Marco, Vista, and Jozu. None of the other commanders. I remember what they looked like. Like, I remember there was a Sharkfish Man. I remember there was a guy who wore like an elf costume. I remember. I remember there's the guy that Doflamingo was able to like just completely control because he was a scrub. So then in Zo we are introduced to Inarashi and Nekomamushi, 2 minks who rule the kingdom of Zo and are also part of this group. And then we have Raizo introduced right at the end of Zo, who he's a ninja. He's a giant Naruto reference. And then I don't remember the exact order the others are introduced in. I think we're introduced to Okiku, who is actual legit trans rep, like to the T, like trans rep. She doesn't have any of the ambiguity that Yamato does. Like, she's biologically male, dresses as a female, goes by she, her pronouns, is like fully transitioned, or not like fully transitioned in the medical sense, but fully like dedicated to like living life as a woman. Whereas Yamato just goes back and forth. Like I said, Yamato I don't think cares about being a guy. I think they are completely fine with living life as a woman so long as they can still call themselves Odin. That's just the impression I got on Yamato. And then you had Ashura Doji, who was introduced towards the end of Act 1. He's Mountain Bandit. He's also one of the stronger ones. And then Kawamatsu, he's the only one introduced in Act 2. He's the last one we saw, and he was in prison with Luffy. And he's also a frog fishman. He's a kappa. And they explain it as like he's a kind of fishman. And they all followed Odin. They were all his retainers when he was Shogun and a daimyo, and a lot of them traveled with him, along with when he was part of Whitebeard's crew and when he was with Roger. And Odin sacrificed himself to save all 9 of them, and then a couple of them got thrown into the future. And one of my favorite examples of time travel, which is the ability to just skip forward in time but not go back. I thought that was handled very well. And then they get to do their big last hurrah against Kaido, except it's not their big last hurrah because they all get their fucking ass beat. And then they go off and do kind of their own things. Ashura sacrifices himself to try to take down Kanjuro and just dies very unceremoniously. Denjiro ends up being the one to finish off Orochi. Kinemon ends up being the one to finish off Kanjuro. Okiku just gets her ass beat from one end of the raid to the other and somehow survives. Raizo comes in fucking clutch towards the end of the raid. He stored a bunch of water from Zo in order to put out Kanjuro's fire after he has the longest fight in One Piece history in terms of like which chapter it began in and which chapter it ended in. It plays out over the course of the greatest amount of chapters of any fight in One Piece, including Luffy versus Kaido. Like Raizo versus Fukuro Kujo is the longest fight in One Piece, which is just crazy. Inarashi takes on Jack the Drought at the end. He gets, revenge for all the things that happened in Zo. And then Nekomamushi takes down Perospero as revenge for Pedro, even though I had to side with Perospero on this one. Pedro went to Whole Cake Island knowing that he was going to die, like ready to sacrifice himself to help Luffy bring about the new dawn. Perospero was just minding his own business when they attacked. Like, they went into Yonko territory knowing that there was going to be a fight. And like, what was Perospero supposed to not do? What was Perospero supposed to do? Not defend his territory? Not defend his mom's territory? Like, just, I don't know, man. Like, I like Pedro and all, but Perospero kind of right on that. Like, you can't just attack a Yonko crew in their home turf without consequences. But, yeah, Nekomamushi makes quick work of him because Perospero is like a third stringer on a Yonko crew. Anyway, I'm going to take a very quick, 1 minute break. I need another soda, and the next section I'm going to do is very long. Now, let's finally talk about the main crew. It's Straw Hat time, baby! I'm going to go in kind of like this ascending order. And as I do so, I'll also be talking about the fights and what I think about them. So, let's start with Usopp, because I think Usopp did the least amount in Wano, and I think he is the weakest Straw Hat, which is funny because he has the 5th highest bounty now. Right? Yeah. So you have Luffy, then you have his 3 big commanders, then you have Robin. So he's got the 6th highest bounty now. And I was actually right in my bounty prediction video. I nailed it. I predicted that he was going to have a 500 million berry bounty, and he is worth 500 million. And for perspective, that's how much Law and Luffy were worth after taking down Doflamingo together. Usopp, he works as the handyman throughout Act 1 and 2. He helps kind of cover for them a couple times. He helps defend Tama during the raid. Helps Nami fight Page 1 and Ulti. Doesn't ultimately accomplish much, but he does take credit for taking them down. And a lot of the weaker Straw Hats, like the bottom and the 2 bottom tier of the Straw Hats. They just got a flat like 300 million berry bounty increase, and that's why Usopp is worth 500 million. He doesn't have like a really good one-on-one. Like again, like the closest thing he has to a one-on-one is his little scuffle with Page One, which is more of him just buying time for Tama to give her Kibidongos to all the gifters in order to turn them on the Beast Pirates. Which is very important. It's a very important development in the raid. Like, I really like how it keeps cutting to CP0 and they're comparing it to a game of Go. And I just realized that this picture is not centered at all. Okay. Sorry. Anyway, next we have Nami, who also doesn't do that much throughout Wano. Like, I'm trying to remember what all she does in Act 1 or 2. Like, I don't remember anything from her in the first 2 acts. And then, she fights Ulti. She actually is the one to finish off Ulti using her Thunderbolt tempo. And, she does get Zeus permanently this time because, she got Zeus at the end of Whole Cake Island. But then when Big Mom shows up, Zeus starts acting weird and then tries to betray them and join forces with Big Mom again. But then, after getting captured by Law and Kid during the rooftop fight, Big Mom, like, cuts her losses and creates Hera to replace him. And then that's when he goes back to Nami permanently. And then he becomes her henchman and helps her finish off Ulti, who already had just gotten her ass beat by like 5 different other people. Ulti's durable, man. She fought Gear 4 Luffy, she fought Yamato, she got struck by Big Mom, and then still was looking for a fight. Like, she is my just angsty ball of anger and big dinosaur energy. Chopper has one of my favorite roles. So I love the utility of the Straw Hats. Like, I could do a whole hour-long video just how much I love the utility that the Straw Hats present. How they're a crew, but they're not just like a bunch of gimmicks. And that's kind of the problem with a lot of One Piece crews, that sometimes they feel very gimmicky. Like the Beast Pirates. Who's the navigator? Who's the cook? Who is fixing up the Beast Pirate ships when they get damaged? We don't really know because we don't get that deep into their crew. Like, they're just a bunch of animal-based fighters, really. Every single person on the Straw Hat crew plays a very specific role, not just within combat and fighting style, but also just within the crew, like, dynamic. And I don't mean that character-wise, which they do. They do character-wise as well. This is a very well-written story, after all. Like, that's kind of barrier. That's the barrier if for me to say that you're a well-written story, is having those kind of character dynamics. No, I mean, like, within the actual functions of the crew. Like, Luffy's the captain, he's the leader, he's the one who fights the strongest guys, and he's the one who makes all the ultimate decisions. Or Zoro's the disciplinarian and swordsman, and he fights the second strongest guy, and he's the one who keeps everyone kind of in line when they start to get rowdy. Except then he gets rowdy, and then Nami has to be the disciplinarian. Nami's the navigator. Sanji's the cook. Usopp is kind of the jack-of-all-trades handyman, but also kind of like the voice of reason. He's the realist. He's the weakest one, and so he's able to be like, hold on, Luffy, that's gonna, like, get me killed, so can we not do that right now? Frankie's the shipwright. Brooks the musician, which isn't a vital function on a crew, but a pirate's gotta sing. Robin's the scholar, and she has this very important, like, big role in reading the poneglyphs and pitting the Straw Hats against the world government, which is very in-game stuff. Jinbei, when he joins the crew, he becomes their helmsman, which is another, like, vital role. And Chopper has my favorite because he's the doctor. And because he's the doctor, he gets to showcase that in ways that Sanji instead really can't. Like, I actually really love what Sanji does in the back half of Whole Cake Island. I love that his big final quote-unquote fight in the arc that is supposed to be all about him is just him baking a cake good enough for Big Mom to back off. Like, that's his big development in that arc, and I loved it. Chopper gets that every time he's relevant, and I love it. I loved his fight with Hogback. I'm so looking forward to him fighting Vegapunk. Like, because I just feel like he's going to throw down Vegapunk, and that's just going to be glorious to see. His big contribution in this arc is against Queen. Queen the Plague, former member of Mads, partner of Vegapunk and Vince Smoke Judge. He unleashes this Ice Oni plague on everyone on the performance floor. It attacks friend and foe alike. Queen gives no fucks. They're all disposable to him. And Chopper just gets pissed. And he just fucking, within minutes, just develops this cure, spreads it around with the help of, Marco and Hyogoro, the Yakuza boss guy. And he then as the cure is spreading, he's just like, alright, Queen. He just transforms into Monster Chopper and just smacks him in the face. Oh, like that is peak Chopper to me. That's actually probably my favorite Chopper moment in the entire series, is when he smacks Queen. Please, world government, for the end of this series, like, I get it's a gag, but can we, at least for the end of the series, get a real bounty on my man Chopper? Julian Henry asked, what do you think of Nami's power-up? Favorite character, not for plot reason, lol. Nami is my favorite Straw Hat, and she has been since before I was even really hooked on the series, and no, it's not just because she's a redhead. Arlong Park is the only other contender for my favorite arc in One Piece, and it's just, the thing that's holding it back is that it's just not as ambitious as Wano, and therefore it's not as impressive as Wano. Like, the fact that Wano stuck the landing at all astounds me. Like, that's just automatically putting it in my top 10 favorite arcs in One Piece. Just the fact that it wasn't an absolute fucking disaster. It should have been a complete disaster of an arc, but Oda somehow made it work. I kind of have the same opinion of it that I did with, like, the Avengers Infinity War, where, like, just the fact that it worked at all is the most impressive thing about it. But no, I think you just missed me talking about her power-up when you first jumped in. I love her power-up. And also, going back to Nami, because she has one of my favorite moments in the entire raid, where Ulti's just pounding her into the dirt, like, telling her, like, no, I'll spare your life if you say that Luffy will never be Pirate King and that Kaido will. And even Usopp's like, just all you have to do is lie, Nami. All you have to do is lie. All you have to do is say that she's right and that Luffy can't. And she's like, I can't lie. I can't lie about family. Luffy will be the Pirate King. I was just like, oh my god, that's so good, and that's so much like Belmare. That's basically exactly what Belmare said before she died, and oh my god, is Nami gonna die? No, because Tama's in for the save. Yes. Okay. So, I talked about Usopp, Nami, and Chopper. Now let's talk about Brook. Brook stole the show in Whole Cake Island, so I wasn't expecting very many big things. But he's fun. He's fun every time he shows up. He was fun when he like, haunted the Kazuki Castle to keep people away from it. He's very good at that. I liked his him helping Robin against Black Maria, like, taking care of all of Black Maria's subordinates. Yeah, there's not much to say about Brook and Wano. He's the Straw Hat. He's probably my least favorite Straw Hat, actually, overall. Uh, but it's because he's just such a clutch hitter, but he is only a clutch hitter. Like I've never been all that invested in any of the things he's doing or any of the things he's got going on, because Brook is at his best when he just swipes the whole show out from under everyone's feet. Like, the best Brook moments are like him smashing the picture of Mother Caramel in Whole Cake Island, or just stealing the rubbing of the road poneglyph, or him saying, "Listen here, young lady," to Big Mom, and being like, a member of the Pirate King's crew can't bow to a mere Yonko. Like, those are the best Brook moments. He just doesn't have that very many in Wano. He doesn't have very many moments like that in Wano. But yeah, I love Brook's. I love all the Straw Hats. It's really hard to really pick my favorites, but someone's got to be at the bottom. It's probably Brook. Next up, Frankie. Frankie kind of got snubbed at the end with that bounty. I think it should have been. I know they just gave him a flat 300 million increase, but I wish the world government would have been a little more informed about that, because it's really stupid that his bounty poster is the Thousand Sunny. Like, why not just keep the Frankie Shogun picture? And also, he dusted Sasaki. Like, yeah, we're getting to the ones that actually had, like, really good big fights. Frankie fucking annihilated Sasaki, and Sasaki has, like, a 400-something million berry bounty. Like, I'm not asking for Frankie to be higher than Usopp, but he should, and he is actually the next highest after Usopp. He does have a higher bounty than Nami, Brook, and especially Chopper. But he puts in so much work for the Straw Hats. Now, he is I feel like he's the busiest member on any given day. Well, no, Sanji. Sanji's obviously the busiest member because he has to cook for all these fucking monsters. But, Frankie, he's constantly repairing the ship. He's constantly upgrading himself. He's constantly, like, getting in fights with really strong executive class opponents, and then he just doesn't get any credit for it. It's pissing me off. Justice for Frankie. Justice for Chopper first, then justice for Frankie. Then after that we have Robin. It is kind of mind-blowing to think that this is the first time Robin has really had a one-on-one fight since joining the Straw Hats, because she joined right after Alabasta. But she didn't really join until after Enies Lobby. And in between there, her only, like, real significant fight was against that fat-ass priest in Skypiea, where she just broke him in half because he was breaking ruins. But Robin was the most disappointing thing for me in Dressrosa, because it was really setting up this fight between her and Diamante. She was going to help Rebecca. She was going to, like, ease their burden, and she was going to kick some ass for once. And then she just stood by and watched as one-legged ass Kairos took on Diamante, and that was just so disappointing. And then Robin finally gets a fight in this arc. Finally gets her first real one-on-one fight post-time skip. Her first real one-on-one fight, and since really joining the Straw Hats after Enies Lobby. And she fucking breaks Black Maria. It's so goddamn metal. Like, it's the most brutal fight in the Wano raid, because she's growing these limbs. She's spanking Black Maria and smacking her around, and Black Maria keeps getting up and smacking her around because they're kind of evenly matched. And then she's just like, okay, I'm gonna take this seriously. It has not been confirmed whether she's using hockey to do this, but it looks like she's using armament hockey on one of her doppelgangers to look like a demon, and she just breaks, like sadistically breaks Black Maria. I love Robin's little sadistic streak. I like how she has just this gallows humor. She has the most morbid sense of humor on the crew, and I am all here for it. And I love that she just vibes so hard with Luffy, and with Luffy's personality, just is completely on board with everything he does. And it was a little terrifying to see her just, like, take Black Maria and just bend her backwards with all these arms just pulling at her, like that scene from Chronicle where Dane DeHaan rips the spider into pieces with his telekinetic power. Like, that's what it kind of reminded me of. It's really, really good fight, and it's also the only Tobi Roppo fight that took up more than a single chapter. Because now we gotta talk about Jinbei versus Who's Who. Who's Who used to be a CP9 agent. He was allegedly, like, on par with Rob Lucci back then. I love that this is the only fight in the entire Wano raid where CP0 was like, yeah, we're gonna just go ahead and bet on the Straw Hats on this one. They're like, yeah, we should probably take care of Who's Who while we're here, because, he likes to run his mouth, and he knows a lot of secrets, and that could cause problems for us. And then the other CP0 agent's like, hold up, wait a minute. We don't have to worry about him, because he's fighting Jinbei. The world government knows how strong Jinbei is. And I said this in my bounty prediction video, where, the only reason Jinbei's bounty was ever as low as it was is because he's the honorable sea knight. He's the first son of the sea. Jinbei, former warlord, just one of the most honorable and most respected dudes in the entire world of One Piece. He's the guy who has dinner with Whitebeard and then has dinner with Big Mom the next night. Like, he's the guy who can get away with that. The world government never really considered him a credible threat because they never thought that Jinbei's abilities would be used really against them. Yeah, there was Marineford, but they understood that situation. That's why they locked him into Impel Down. Like, they threw him in Impel Down and locked him up, but let him keep his warlord status because they knew that he was just such an honorable dude and was on such good terms with Whitebeard that they didn't want to make him make that choice. They didn't want to burden him with having to choose between his position as warlord and his position as one of Whitebeard's friends. They were doing him a service, locking him up in level 6 of Impel Down. It was just supposed to be for as long as that. Then he broke out with Luffy and fought alongside Whitebeard. And they're like, we kind of have to take your warlord status now. And Jinbei's like, well, I resign anyway. Like, okay, thank you. But, we're still cool, right? Right? Well, now Jinbei's on the Straw Hats. the one pirate crew that has actively declared war on the world government. Now they almost certainly had to fight Jinbei, and they gave him a bounty that reflects his actual combat abilities. 1.1 billion berries. Jinbei's been strong enough to be in the Billion Berry Club since we met him. Like, remember, like, he was fighting evenly with Ace. And he was one of the only people in Marineford that actually managed to block attacks from Admiral level combatants. And he just fucking crushes Who's Who. Like, Who's Who talks all this shit to Jinbei about him being a former warlord and about, like, the Nika fruit and about how, like, oh, the history of fishmen is the history of slavery. And Jinbei is just like, all right, you've talked enough. Steps on his tail and just beats the fuck out of him. It's so satisfying. Because Who is a piece of shit. Who is a bigger piece of shit than Kaido, I think. Yeah, Who's the one dude who joined Kaido's crew, and that was like an upgrade to his pedigree as a person. Because, like, fuck CP9, fuck the world government, fuck all of Cypher Pole, like, fuck the Beast Pirates, but, you know, they have their own code of honor, too. You know, they got this kind of Darwinism thing going on, might makes right. Now, if you're not strong, if you want to eat, you gotta be strong enough to take the food for yourself. That's kind of how Kaido lives. You know, and Big Mom's crew, kind of honorable, you know, they don't start shit for no reason, and you know, they don't fuck with kids. Even in the pirate world, there are standards. You know, you don't fuck around with kids. You know, that's something Big Mom is passionate about. Who is a piece of shit who does not care about any of those codes of honor, because he's a fuck boy, and Jinbei absolutely beat his ass, and who deserved it. Then we have Sanji, who actually has a lower bounty than Jinbei right now. But I don't think Jinbei's bounty is going to rise significantly for the end of the series. I think Sanji's will. Like, I think Sanji and Zoro will both cross the 2 billion bounty mark, whereas Jinbei won't. I don't think Jinbei's going to get higher than 2 billion berries by the end of the series. Zoro and Sanji certainly will. Zoro kind of has to at this point, now that we know that Mihawk's bounty is 3.5 billion. Like, now Zoro just kind of has to cross that mark. Similar to how Luffy has to have at least a 5.6 billion berry bounty in order to really sell that he's the Pirate King. Sanji plays Black Ops for a lot of One Piece. Like, he has the Soba mask identity. He does use the Reitsu, which not quite sure how to feel about that after the big deal he made about it at the end of Whole Cake Island. His fight, I wasn't all that interested in his fight with Queen, to be perfectly honest. Like, I think it was a really good fight. Like, I think it was well drawn. I think the dynamic that they had was really good. You know, Queen is this dude who will use any dirty means at his disposal. He has all these scientific tools and shit that he has jammed into his body, like Frankie, and he is not afraid to use them on, even if it's against his own comrades. Anything that gives him an edge. Whereas Sanji's all about chivalry, you know, like, he doesn't even use his hands because he doesn't want to damage them, because he needs them to cook. He only fights with his legs. He always limits himself. He never fights women. He never strikes. He never fights women. That's really his big rule. His other big rule, other than don't use hands and don't hit women. Those are his only two rules. But he starts getting all these other tools at his disposal that he finds out as he uses the raid suit, and it unlocks those repressed genes that have been in his body the entire time, but were suppressed because of what his mother did. He even asked this question of, like, Luffy, what do you need me to be? Like, he asked himself this question. I think it's a really stupid question, but thankfully Sanji comes to the right choice. Newsflash. Luffy, you know, he requires his crew members to be like a certain strength level so that they don't just get in his way. But he's got Usopp on the crew, man. So even that kind of has its limit. Like, there's the bar is set pretty low on what it takes to actually join the Straw Hats from a strength perspective. He does not need Sanji to be this absolute dominant monster. He didn't force Sanji onto his crew because of his fighting skills. They certainly help. They've gotten them out of a lot of jams. He's constantly fought like the third strongest member of the bad guy group. You know, as Luffy fights number 1 and Zoro fights number 2, Sanji always fights number 3. It's even in his name, Sanji. Luffy needs a cook. He needs a cook more than a cook and a navigator. Those are the two things he needs the most. he does not give a fuck if Sanji is too weak to fight Queen. He doesn't need Sanji to be strong enough to fight Queen and other people on Queen's level. He needs someone who can cook and handle themselves. Sanji could already do both out of the gate. So, luckily Sanji does arrive to the right conclusion that, like, oh, he needs me to be his cook first and foremost. Alright, now now that I've over that existential crisis, I'm gonna prove that I'm also capable of beating the ass of people like Queen, and he absolutely beats Queen's ass. So like the whole existential crisis thing, like I didn't buy it. I didn't buy into it. Like it would be a very good question for Sanji earlier on, like in Alabasta, but we're so far deep now. Like, and even if Luffy just needed more top tier fighters, he could have just forced Yamato to join the crew. He's got Jinbei now. Like, there are other people that Luffy can pull onto the crew that can fulfill that role of third strongest fighter, if need be. And then we got Zoro. Zoro is the best character of the Straw Hats in Wano. He is used as the audience surrogate to all the suffering that Wano has been going through. He sees first and foremost how cruel Orochi is to the civilians, how everyone is starving, how the smile fruits have been affecting people, how the poison water has been affecting people. He has this kind of inherent fascination with the samurai because he has a similar, code of honor, and he finds out that, like, the village he was raised in was actually founded by a bunch of Wano refugees in East Blue, the Shimotsuki clan. Whether or not he's actually related to them, I don't know, and I don't think it really matters. He already inherited Kuina's will. He doesn't have to also share some of her DNA. Like, it's just not necessary. And he, he's with Luffy a lot. He fights Killer, and that was a really good fight. Then he during the raid, he has this one where, like, Okiku's arm drops from the hole after it gets blasted off by Kaido, and everyone's just running around with, like, chickens with their heads cut off, and he cuts up Apu, gets the cure to Chopper, and it's just like, I am not here to play these fucking games. I am here because Kaido's the toughest son of a bitch on the 7 Seas, and I am going to cut him because that guy is an asshole, and I want to be the world's strongest swordsman, and it's just a very important step in his development. And he also just gets this kind of like personal beef with Kaido and his crew that we've never really seen from Zoro before. Like, he starts taking this a lot more personally. And then we find out that he's had Conqueror's Haki this whole time, and that's what the whole, like, weird Ashura mode was, and he actually does cut Kaido, and Kaido even says, like, this scar will remain. You're the first person since Odin to actually cut me like this. And then he gets crushed and then healed by Law and Chopper, and then he fights King and does his Minority Hunter Zoro routine. I do like the Zoro versus King fight because it's quite a bit different from other Zoro fights. Other Zoro fights have been kind of focused around, like, just hitting harder. He's very much a typical shonen protagonist in that regard, whereas King, it's more about, like, kind of finding out what King's actual abilities are, what a Lunarian is, and understanding what it takes to actually cut them. It's actually structured much more like a Luffy fight than a Zoro fight. Which is why it's probably not my favorite Zoro fight. I just realized that I had a different slide for the fights that I've been doing. I did. Well. Yeah. I used this image for a different video, so probably gonna just go ahead and skip this image. or I'll just use it for the rooftop fight. So I really do like Kid, Killer, and Law and the role that they play. I like Killer versus Hawkins. I thought that was a really creative use of Hawkins' abilities. Uh, I love that Kid is just that guy who he's a, kind of a tank too, and everything involving the rooftop is peak fiction. Sorry, the next couple slides I'm gonna breeze through because I've been going for almost 2 hours now, and it's getting really hot and stuffy in my room. I can't turn on my fan while I'm streaming because it just overwhelms my mic, but it's just too hot in here without it. So I'm gonna kind of breeze through my final couple points. Especially since I think I've already kind of touched on a lot of the ideas I've had. No, I do like Yamato. I do like all the Kaido fight. Ooh, that was a burp. Like all the Kaido fights, I like that this is another Luffy fight where Luffy has to figure out how to hit his opponents. Because we got that little bit with Katakuri and learning Future Sight and learning how to aim for the gaps in Future Sight. But we haven't really had a real solid Luffy fight like this since Rob Lucci. And I like how it's kind of like this Zen thing. Like, it's not about, like, reaching a higher power level. It's about learning a technique, learning to let the hockey flow through you and not waste your effort. And I like Kaido. I'm gonna take this moment to kind of talk about Kaido because he's been accused of being a very boring villain, and he has kind of typical shonen antagonist stuff. But there are levels of depth in there that other One Piece villains just haven't had. He's the failed Joy Boy. Like other people in the fandom have called him that. He's the failed Joy Boy. He's the gatekeeper. He's the gatekeeper to be like, the guy who beats me is gonna be the next Pirate King. Like, he's almost given up on being Pirate King, but he recognized that he is strong enough to be Pirate King. Like, if he combines his forces with Big Mom, or if he gets like the right crewmates, he could make a credible move on Raftel. But he's not strong enough. His hockey isn't strong enough. He even said, like, yeah, Devil Fruit powers and stuff are neat, but the hockey is what transcends all. And he's saying that almost softly admitting that, like, a lot of his strength came from his Devil Fruit. Like, yeah, he's got all these advanced hockey techniques, but he's not super powerful with any of them. Obviously, he's super powerful with all of them. He's one of the strongest characters in the entire series. But he's not on that level. He's not on the same level that Whitebeard was in his prime, or that Roger was. Like, he knows he's not good enough. But the person who is good enough is the guy who's going to beat him. And that person is going to have in order to beat him, that person will have to have the potential to do what Kaido never could. And that's why he ends up asking Luffy at the end, like his final words to Luffy. And even before that, where he's like, so you weren't able to become Joy Boy either. And then Luffy becomes Joy Boy, like the literal incarnation, with the Nika powers. Like, I feel like Kaido's got a bad rap, but I feel like Kaido is going to age a lot better in people's minds the further we get from him, and the more we find out, like, just how significant all of this really was to the grand scheme of things. Because, yeah, like, I think Kaido just wasn't as funny. I think that's his problem. I think the problem people actually have with Kaido is that he's not funny the way that Caesar Clown and Doflamingo were. And yeah, the Katakuri wasn't all that funny either, but Katakuri had a lot in common with Luffy, and it was able to kind of fill that niche that no other villain had up to that point. Now it's kind of been there, done that as far as the parallels go, and what Kaido's left as is kind of just this force of nature that Luffy has to overcome. And speaking of overcoming, let's talk about Gear 5. This is going to be very brief because I've kind of already touched on this. Luffy has always been a Max Fleischer cartoon stuck in a shonen battle series. He has always had more in common with Popeye and Bimbo than he has with Naruto and Ichigo. Gear 5 is the culmination of all of this. And it changed One Piece forever. I will not be able to read those early chapters the same way ever again. And it's just this logical plot twist that it just makes so much sense. And like it kind of points this out as kind of like a more direct foreshadowing of this moment, where it's like, what's going on? The rubber's not supposed to work that way. Rubber has never worked that way. Luffy has never been bound by the rules of rubber. It's always been played up for gags and cartoon nonsense and stuff. And, you know, you can kind of just handle like, okay, maybe Oda just doesn't really know the limitations of rubber or whatever. But no, he does understand the limitations of rubber. He was actually doing something with it. When Oda says that he had, when people say like Oda had everything planned out, I don't believe them. Like, Oda's been very honest about what he's planned out and what he hasn't. Oda says that he planned Gear 5 out from the very beginning and that this was always going to be a big reveal with Luffy's Devil Fruit from the start. I believe it. Because it just makes so much sense. Luffy has always copied stuff. All of his moves are him using his rubber powers to recreate the effects of something else. Gum Gum Pistol. Gum Gum Rapid Fire is a Gatling gun. Gum Gum Balloon. Gum Gum UFO. Gum Gum Elephant Gun. Gear 2 and Gear 3 or Gear 2 at least, was meant to recreate the abilities of CP9 and the Rokushiki techniques, like Shave. Gear 3 was supposed to recreate kind of like Giants. Like, there's actually no physical reason why Gear 3 punches would hit that much harder. It's just all the same mass that Luffy had, plus the mass of air. Like, it would feel at most like a Zeppelin. Like, it's not going to be this stone-crushing cannon the way it has been, but it's actually recreating the power of giants using rubber. Then Gear 4 is him recreating the abilities of the strongest animals that he fought during the time skip, Bound Man and Snake Man and Tank Man. Gear 5 is just unlimited freedom. Like, it doesn't have the same drawbacks that Gear 4 does, as far as we know. We don't know all about that. We haven't seen enough Gear 5 to really know what all the weaknesses are, and it comes up under very less than ideal circumstances, but he's just a cartoon god at that point. He's just the sun god Nika, meant to spread joy and liberation to the world, and he's like grabbing lightning bolts and throwing them at Kaido and expanding his fist to the size of Onigashima, and just being a monster, just being a force to be reckoned with, while also kind of losing his mind. Like that's another thing. Like, we find out that Zoans all came from something, and that they all have like the personalities of the original kind of embedded in. So this kind of brings up a theory I've had about Chopper for a while, is that Chopper is able to have all of his different forms because they're all recreating different human tribes. He's got the human fruit, and it's able to give him the abilities of all these other humans, and maybe the awakened form is what Monster Chopper is, and it's an ancient giant. Like, it's an ancient giant plus reindeer combination, and that's why he like goes all ballistic until he learns to control it. Like, it's a lot of food for thought. It also makes me wonder about Sengoku, wonder if Sengoku awakened his devil fruit and found out something about the world by being enlightened like the actual Buddha. Like, it's just a lot of fun things to think about. A lot of brain food for me. That's all I have to say about Gear 5 for now. Next is Green Bull. So after Wano kind of starts to wrap up, we get Green Bull. He comes in there and just starts wrecking havoc. He kills King and Queen. He's got a Logia fruit that turns him into a forest man, which is a really neat, unique ability. And there are a lot of questions about like power scaling. I don't give a fuck about power scaling. I really don't. But admirals have always been better than Yonko commanders. That's been pretty consistent. And also people like are talking shit on him now because of what happens with Shanks. I don't buy into that. Like, Green Bull was already stretching beyond his abilities. Like, he was already, like, just big dick energy going after one of the Emperors. Going after Luffy. Along with Law and Kid, and also, like, all the people that just toppled two Yonkos at the same time, and he's gonna pick a fight with them. Like, even if they were still, like, down and out and hadn't started to recover yet, like, that's already a very difficult fight. Shanks showing up, all of a sudden, Green Bull isn't just fighting one Yonko, he's fighting two. He's fighting two Yonko, and then also two Yonko candidates on top of that, and also the entire country of Wano. Shanks showing up and him feeling Shanks' presence was the wake-up call that he needed, because he was not going to ever win that fight. He was never in danger of beating Luffy. That was just never going to happen. Like, he could throw hands with Luffy for a little bit, but we saw what happens when admirals fight Yonko, and yeah, the admirals always get a couple good hits in, but they never make anything stick. Except Aki Inu. Aki Inu made it stick when he punched a hole through Whitebeard, and then punched another hole through Whitebeard, and then punched half of his face off. And then had it get censored in the anime. So that's all I have to say about Green Bull. He's really strong. He's probably stronger than like Zoro or Sanji or Jinbei, but not as strong as Luffy. Like, that's just not going to happen. That he was never going to win that fight. This was just a really good introduction to him as a character and stuff. I like him. So next, this is also my final slide. We gotta talk about Cross Guild. This is perfect. Every single little thing about Cross Guild in its reveal has been perfecto. I love that Crocodile's back. I love that he's got a respectable bounty. I love that Mihawk has one of the highest bounties we've ever seen. I love that Buggy is getting all the credit for this. I'm loving that it was actually Crocodile's idea, but Mihawk is the one that's like, hey, let's let Buggy take all the credit for it so that he can take the heat off of us and we can just keep doing our thing. I love that it's all thanks to Buggy's delivery service and his PR team hyping him up. I love that the world government is just stupid enough to actually buy into this bullshit. I love this poster. I want this poster on my wall. It's great, and it makes me really excited for what's to come. And that whatever it is to come, and One Piece is on break this week. That's why I'm doing it this week. I don't know where we're going next. My guess, I kind of want to see... Well, we're definitely getting into the Revolutionary Army. We might be getting into Shanks soon. We might be getting into Blackbeard soon. But we're definitely getting into the Revolutionary Army immediately. So I'm thinking that wherever Luffy is going, he is going to end up running into Sabo and Vivi. And then that's what's going to be our gateway to this final saga. And how long that final saga is going to last, I'm guessing 4 years. Maybe long. It might take longer than that. I don't think it'll be as long as the Yonko saga. like I said, it's gonna just be all go, 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 go. But I can't see it being less than 3 years. It's gonna be between 4 and 5 years at least. Again, maybe more. I hope not too much more after that. I don't want this to be bloated. I don't want this final saga to be too indulgent the way that like Dressrosa and parts of Wano were. But I don't want it to feel rushed either. That's all I have to say. I've been going for 2 hours now, and I've been talking for 2 hours straight, and that's about my limit. So thank you all for joining me, and I will talk to you with more more to come. Like I said, Ice Queendom review next week. Quinn Part 11 will come shortly after I have access to that movie, whenever that is. Keep an eye out for my book Well, my book's already been announced on my Twitter. Follow me on Twitter at EA Mediocrity4. And the book is called The Hellfire Bratz. And keep an eye on the channel for more news about that. I will see you next time. Bye.